Have you ever wondered why some people have all the tools to change their life or business, yet still don't make the leap? Maybe you felt that tension yourself, knowing exactly what to do, but not quite doing it. On today's episode, I sit down with Troy from Vanguard Collective, a business coach who's seen it all when it comes to accountability, brand identity, and staying aligned with your core values. And trust me, this won't be the last time you hear from him. Troy's got a wealth of insight, and I already know he'll be making plenty of return appearances. So, now, with full transparency, we did have some audio and video hiccups this time around. It's not the cleanest production, but the conversation was too good to hold back. If you stick with us, you'll pick up some real gems that could seriously shift your perspective. So get ready to learn why real growth starts with you, how a coach can and can't carry your vision, and why your business will only be as strong as the people behind it. Welcome to the show. Let's dive in. So talk to me about your idea of, since we're just touching on this, especially as a business coach in your industry, when you see somebody clearly desire to change their life, you've given them what they need, yet for some reason they still don't. It's the saying, lead a horse to water, right? So how do you deal with that? Do you take on the responsibility of the actions of your clients? Do you just kind of separate and just go, no matter what I do, the ultimate decision is always up to the person, and I have my own things in my own life that I should be doing myself, and I can relate to them and the struggle of that, and maybe you bring some grace to your coaching because of that. Just a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Well, I mean, that's a big question.
It is, right?
So the answer I give you is going to be multifaceted, but here's what I'm going to tell you. The only person who can help a business owner is the business owner, right? Like,
right.
now there's a certain level of commitment that I have to give to them, right? And have I ever crossed that line? Yeah, of course. Like, I've crossed the line from business coach to friend, from friend to mentor. I mean, there's a lot of different like nuance that can happen within a relationship. It's happened with you and I, right? Like, you're like, hey, I want you to be on my podcast.
Right.
I'm like, rad. So what's that look like?
Right.
And so here we are, right? Here's what I'm going to say. Accountability is, you got to stop messing with that. I can't.
I know, I'm just going to hold it some.
Accountability is one of the two pieces that I help with. I mean, I have a lot of skill. I've done a lot of different things. I've helped a lot of different people. But this comes down to a good business coach, not even me, a good business coach helps you do two things. Get super clear on what you want to do.
Right.
And hold you accountable.
So the accountability part is your mediation for that.
Yeah. Now, look, that can take a lot of different shapes. So I don't want you to just think it's like, and from your personal experience, right? It's not just going through a checklist. Well, Javoy, you said you do this. Did you do it or not?
Right.
Check. No. Accountability can be a lot of things. And the reality is, a business owner is a person first. Right. They are not their business. Now, a lot of people get this confused, right? And they become their business, or they identify only through their work, or whatever that looks like. So sometimes being a business coach can be very much therapist too. Yeah. Because it's creating the space for someone to make mistakes. Because I don't care who you are, and I'm pointing both thumbs first, at me first, right? Yeah. You can't do everything right the first time. You've got to learn. So when I was becoming a consultant, one, it wasn't just today I'm a consultant. And I went to school and I got a degree in consulting. And then I got a master's degree in consulting, and now I've got my doctorate. No, I have a degree in English literature. Does it help me in my consulting? Absolutely. We do a lot of writing in my consulting. Yeah. Right? There's a lot of copy. It's a lot about how to identify what my values are and how to really articulate what that sounds like. Right. Remember the exercise? I'm like, hey, that's a great word for you, but what do you think about this one? Right. And you're like, oh, That's even more
I
me.
identify more with that. Yeah.
Right. And so
Right.
being able to bring
Mm,
your background to coaching. And so I always tell my clients, and I will tell this to you today again,
right.
I will never be the expert in videography.
Right.
I don't need to be. 95% of businesses fail because they're formed by technicians who are great at what they do and just don't know how to run a business.
Right.
Right. And
They're eager.
yeah,
That's
exactly. And there's the challenge, right? Because there's so many opportunities to fail in those first years.
Mm-hmm.
So many, including my own. Guess who had a business coach? The business coach. Right?
Oh.
I had a mentor. I've asked them questions about, like, you go to the resources that you can get, right? And like being able to articulate it is the biggest piece, because that's where you're going to find your success, is understanding really how you deliver your product or service. There's only two things a business can do. They either perform a service or they sell a product that they've created.
Right.
That's it. That's every business. There's no other business outside of that.
Right.
And so business in and of itself, you guys, is not a complicated topic. And yet everyone wants to make it complicated. Why don't you go get your master's in business or your doctorate in business?
Yeah.
But look, the one thing that separates me as a coach is I believe if a business puts people first, both its people and the people they're trying to serve, it can be successful. You have to think about how you're going to do that. You have to put a plan in place. But people have to be the center of your business. There's no business that doesn't have people at the heart of it.
Period.
There's no consumer that's not people. Right?
Faceless.
And people are like, what about veterinary? Well, yeah, the veterinarian's working on the animal, but the animal is being paid for by the people.
Right.
Right.
The animal's not paying its own bill.
And that's it. It's like, it's a service or a product. And skill is involved in both of those.
That's right.
So when you say, how do you make the greatest impact? Or what does it look like? The big piece for me is I try not to lose focus that no matter what's happening, I'm dealing with people.
Right.
Some businesses need to be even more thoughtful of that.
Yeah.
You're in one of them.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
Like, you have to capture emotions.
Yes.
That's hard.
Yes.
I don't really have to do that. But like, for example, I was running this morning.
Okay.
And I'm listening to a book, a new book for you, by the way.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I love me some books.
And I realized I had been coaching a client wrong.
Oh.
Yeah. Like, just revelation. Listen to this book and it's like, oh, so what do? I'm people, right?
Right.
So I put my client at the heart of this. How does my client benefit from this knowledge? I immediately, while I'm running, I'm like doing the running and texting thing. I'm like, are you up? Do you have a chance to talk? And we talked, and I just said, look, I have to admit something. I have been coming at you specifically all wrong.
Really?
And my client was like, how so? Like, you don't want to hear like the person that you contracted is failing. And it wasn't failing, but it was a nuance that I can turn into something really positive. And at the heart of it was people and confidence.
Right.
I was giving traditional advice on how to set goals and achieve them. But that was never gonna work for this person because they didn't have inner confidence.
Right.
And so I heard this thing on this book, and maybe we could put the book in the chat or something.
Yes.
Where instead of having like this high level goal, create a high level baseline.
Oh.
Like where you consistently hit, right? So instead of having a PR every time,
right,
you always hit your minimum expectation, right? So then you're not stretching yourself too far. And what this book had found, because it was specifically related to athletes, right? The book found that you can actually create better, more consistent performance by hitting the minimum standard than by always going for the record.
And that's so interesting and funny, because how many of us are not discouraged by a situation, but rather the expectation we set for ourselves that we didn't meet?
Well, I mean everyone.
That's everyone, right?
Like, I mean, you and I've had that conversation 1,000 times.
That's right. Yeah.
Do you want to take a break while the...
Yeah.
Give us a moment. We'll be right back.
My kids just got home.
Family life. This is business, right? How does one manage and balance that? And this is it in real life. So we'll be right back. In all of my years of business, I have come across some cool stories, some interesting tidbits about things that I never knew. And I know you more than anyone have some cool stories to tell. So, what's a profound thing that you can recall in your tenure as a human, as a coach, that you thought represented a brand being the best brand that it can be, and why, essentially?
That's a very pointed question.
Yeah.
There's a couple. One that stands out in particular. Have you ever heard the story of Flaming Hot Cheetos?
Well, I've had Flaming Hot Cheetos, and I know that my daughter likes Flaming Hot Cheetos, but I don't know if there's a story behind it that I'm familiar with.
There's a great story behind this. So part of this is not being stuck in your idea of what your brand is, right? Like we've had these conversations. The whole goal is to set where you want to go, but how you get there,
Right.
it's ever changing.
Right.
It's fluid, right? Because
Yeah.
that's how business works. That's how people work.
That's right.
So and I'm not an expert on this, but I love this story.
Right.
Frito-Lay Pepsi,
Okay.
big company,
Okay.
right? At one point, there was a janitor for Frito-Lay Pepsi.
Okay.
I mean, this is the guy that empties the trash cans and sweeps up and vacuums and cleans windows, right? And low rung, right? And we think entry level. We definitely don't view those people as decision makers in major corporations. Like no one goes check with the janitor. Right. So this janitor loved his job and he loved the company, but he felt like it wasn't representative of him or his culture. He's a Hispanic guy.
Oh, okay.
So he takes Cheetos home and he starts experimenting with a recipe to create a product that would be liked by Hispanic culture.
That's not a small undertaking.
No, and no laboratory, no science no, like we're not talking about a food engineer or a product developer.
Right.
We're talking about janitor.
Wow.
So he finally settles on a recipe he likes. And he walks in to the VP's office and schedules an appointment with him.
Okay.
So this is the cool part about Pepsi and Frito-Lay, that they give access to a janitor.
Yeah.
Right? Think about that. Like, I mean, most people don't give credence to people who don't have certain levels of gravitas or a degree or whatever, right? But this VP says, okay, I'll meet with a janitor. The janitor goes in, blows the VP's mind.
Yeah.
And thus, Flaming Hot Cheetos are born. One of Frito-Lay's, Frito-Lay Pepsi's best products, right?
Right.
It's an amazing story, and it's one that I want you to think about. But when you think about brand, people get so caught up in this idea that we have to be the same over and over and over. But I want you to think of brand as the ability to pivot as well.
Right.
But here's the thing. Where brands lose is when they pivot away from their values and their culture.
Oh.
Think about that.
And culture.
Think about that. So there's a great book on this. I've recommended to you many times, but it's Jim Collins and his book, Good to Great. It's a study of businesses, right? There are businesses in that book that were wildly successful during the writing of that book that don't exist today. Think about some stuff that used to be, that was huge. And I, having been an American my whole life, right? I grew up here. The toy store that I used to go to doesn't exist anymore.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
The video rental store
man,
I grew up with doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
The place where I bought all my electronics doesn't exist anymore. Like, and it's about leadership. It's about brand identity, but it's about being true to what you start with.
Right.
Right?
Right.
These companies that are consistently winning stay true to the model. Now, I'm not a car guy one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
But when the stock market tanked, the Ford family of Ford Automotive bought the stocks. They kept the company afloat out of their own personal money. When the market recovered, they made record profits.
Wow.
But they believed in their company so much
They didn't.
that they were willing to put their own money right back into it.
That's right.
And they didn't expect the stockholders to do it. They didn't ask anyone else to do it. Now, this is not a endorsement for Ford Motor Company, but it's the idea that, hey, our brand
Yeah.
is bigger than just the product we put out.
Right.
PepsiCo,
Right.
Frito-Lay, Flaming Hot Cheetos.
Right.
And like, you can't go anywhere without seeing Flaming Hot Cheetos now. And by the way, there are now like 18,000 versions of Flaming Hot Cheetos.
Right.
Have you seen this?
I know.
Flaming Hot with limon. Flaming Hot with a little bit of Cancun. I'm like, Cancun in the bag. It's amazing. But that's it. It's like, okay, we are willing to still continue to strive for our goal, strive to be the best version of ourselves we can be, but we're not so fixated on what we are, who we are, that we can't be flexible in how we get there.
Right.
Every company can learn from this. Every business owner, from solopreneur
That's right.
to like Fortune 500 company. Don't lose sight of where you're trying to go, but you got to get really clear on that too.
Right. So as you were saying all of that, I started to think, one question that came to my mind was, man, that's a lot of big business stuff. Like, what about the little guy like me? And I think the misconception is that somehow the big business is doing different things than the little guy like you should be doing. And I wanted you to touch on that from a standpoint of coaching. What are the basics of a business that make it run, make it successful? Is it the values? Is it their culture, as you mentioned before? What are those points that one can use to aid and guide their own setting up of their business, where day one looks as close to day 300 as it can, without feeling like you need to somehow abandon advice and just go through the flow and grow with whatever it comes, but actually like set your destination and actually have a mission as to how you're going to get there, right? Like, what does that look like for you? And
All right, you're stealing my talking points, but
Oh, well, you've been coaching me.
yes,
So this is
no,
good.
that's good. At least you've learned something. So the first thing I would tell any business,
Yeah.
Fortune 500 company, brand new, your business hasn't even been open a day.
Okay.
The first thing you can do to guarantee success is admit that you don't know anything,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
Look, that's not to say you don't have skill.
Yeah.
Okay, you start your business because of either a passion for it or a skill set that you have or whatever that looks like, right?
Right.
But admit, show up and go, I know nothing.
That's right.
And now I'm ready to learn.
Okay.
Right?
And that humility.
Exactly. Well, look, hubris is difficult to deal with, but like humility is a nice place to start. But if you're successful, it's hard to always be humble. Right? So here's the deal. And we've talked about this. Every business from A to Z, $100 million to $0 of revenue, needs 5 things that I think you need to start with. And I call them the 5 pillars. Now, I have not invented any of this stuff. I'm a curator. I'm not an inventor.
Right.
But the first 2 are internal.
Okay.
And those are values and culture.
Okay.
You get super specific on your values, and then you're able to say, I can make decisions based on my values.
Right.
And no matter where you're going, you can make decisions to get you there.
Right.
And they're going to be in alignment with who you are. Companies that lose sight of their values often fail. The second piece is culture.
Okay.
Now, this sounds crazy, but you can have culture even as a solopreneur.
Because
it's how you are going to build the culture. The culture is usually built on the owner, right? And so the culture exists now, whether you have employees or not. So identify it. And what does culture look like? Culture is what you want to curate, encourage, grow within your company.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a culture of laziness, what kind of product do you think you'll get?
Right.
Missed deadlines,
Right.
exceeded costs, missed budgets.
Yeah.
But if you say, my culture is friendliness,
Right.
and that's how you show up in every interaction, in every sales conversation, even as an independent business owner, you can say, hey, this is how I'm going to impact my clients. They're going to know me as the most friendly, over-the-top videographer on the planet. Identifying your culture and being super clear on your values is going to help you make decisions that are going to move you in the direction toward what you want, because it's your business in alignment with who you are.
So, to touch on that, sometimes one's values can seem like the problem. Like if you're just such a nice and friendly guy and you feel like you're being taken advantage of by your customers because of that, how do you not abandon that in your pursuit to still maintain your tenacity and force to be reckoned with, um, boundaries, so on and so forth? Because there's a lot of times where I'm like, my culture is, laid back, chill, making everyone feel comfortable. I'm from Jamaica. Yeah, man, just very smooth. And sometimes people can be put off by that because maybe the nature of the project is stressful to them and they don't think my attitude is reflective of what needs to get done. But I am confident I can get what they need done. So how do I, is it a matter of my choice wording? Is it a matter of just that's not my customer? Like, how do I navigate that? Like,
Well,
what
okay.
are the-
So you're asking several questions.
yes, I am.
The first one is, you're not going to get walked on if you really truly follow your values.
Okay.
You can't.
Right.
Right? Like if your value is friendliness, you're also filtering it through the lens of, I want to work with friendly people.
So non-friendly won't even they won't even come.
If you're using it, you'll filter it cleanly.
Fair enough.
Right?
Fair enough.
So, for example, my number one value is integrity.
Okay.
Right? Now, I need to be clear on values. That doesn't mean you're perfect
Mm-hmm.
all the time. There might be moments, and I hope they're very few and far between, that I don't act with the absolute most integrity that I have.
Right.
But it's my value, so I strive to get there. And I think the gap is pretty small if there's a gap at all.
But
Right.
it's at least even established.
Well, and then I talk about it. I
Right.
say, okay, when I'm, case in point, I have the opportunity to work with Javoy.
Right.
He's a person of color, different culture than I am,
Yes.
cool business idea. Like I don't have any other clients that are videographers.
Right.
Very different personality.
Yeah.
Like you are like the most chill. I'm a little bit intense.
Yeah.
And I filtered it through integrity. So I asked myself, I said, in the prospect of working with Javoy,
Yeah.
can I show up with the absolute most integrity that I possibly can? And my answer was yes,
That's right.
I could, right? Now, the second, you have to invert that.
Yeah.
Do I believe Javoy has integrity and will follow through with all this stuff? Because I'm not like, this is not a game of patty cake.
Right.
We don't slap hands, then you're done for the day. Like you get homework and I
Right.
hold you accountable. And I really, I put it to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
love
so,
that.
and so saying that, it's like Javoy has integrity.
That's right.
Now, if at any point in our relationship where either of those fail, then to be true to my values, I would have to make a decision. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you stop doing the homework, if you
Right.
stop wanting to learn and building your business and you started saying, well, I know everything,
Right.
that's when I have to end that relationship because Javoy doesn't actually believe I have value and that's not integrity.
Right.
Or if I ever feel like I cannot deliver the highest quality of coaching to Javoy, which is possible. If Javoy got to $100 million,
Right.
that's way out of my wheelhouse, which would be rad.
Right.
I would love that for you. But then I would say, okay, hey, look, I've got leadership consultants that you need to
Right.
talk to.
That's right.
I've got
Because
high
next
level
level.
business consultants. And that's also getting out of my own way because my integrity would say, Javoy grew and did awesome. So now he needs to grow with another person who can help him grow. Right?
So-
It's just like going to the pros. You start with your high school coach,
Mm-hmm.
then your college coach, then your professional coach. Okay. Every one of those is a scale up. And it doesn't take the value away from the high school coach. From a business perspective, I work with Main Street businesses. I love this space. I love mom and pop.
Yeah.
And I love working with minority business owners and women business owners. Like it's an awesome opportunity to help them level the playing field.
Right.
So, okay. Now, the second aspect of this question
Okay.
is, how did you put it? It's not only your values, but like how you may feel that your values have to shift
Right.
as you grow.
Yeah.
Okay. The answer is your values don't shift. They can get more specific,
But they shouldn't shift.
but they're not going to change. If you have a sea change in values, you didn't have the right values.
That makes sense.
Right?
That makes sense.
And so, like, for example,
Yeah.
let's say we start with honesty as our value. Our number one value is honesty. And you're like, everything is honesty.
Right.
Well, honesty is an aspect of integrity.
Right.
So maybe integrity is the true value. You're like, oh, well, and it's also about how we define it. People want to get stuck in these ideas of how you define it.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to move out of the values conversation back to the rest of it.
Mm.
So those first two pillars, values and culture, right?
That's right. And create
That's
the
looking at-
expectation
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
Right.
The second piece is vision, mission, and purpose, 3, 4, and 5.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to make sure we're super clear on this. Most people make this mistake. They combine their vision and their mission. And it's not the same thing. So let's get clear. Your vision's where you want to go.
So I see a destination ahead. It's 50 feet.
Or it's your goal. It's
the future.
Javoy with a production company
Right.
and 80 employees and $30 million of gross annual revenue.
Gotcha.
That's your
a
destination,
set destination.
right?
Right.
And what does that look like? And get super clear on that. Articulate as much as you can, tell the story. And then the mission. The mission is how you're going to get there. If you think one word in a mission, there's one word that captures it. It's action. Action, action, action.
So that's funny because for me, mission always meant essentially the connotations around how you're going to get to the vision, not necessarily the steps you're going to be taking to get to the vision. And that's where you're saying it gets mixed up, is because it is.
Well, and that's also too, like some people say, my mission is to get to Saratoga.
Right.
My mission is to make $100 million.
Right.
No, that's not your mission. That's actually your vision.
Gotcha. Okay.
The mission is all about the steps you're going to take, and you need to articulate that, right?
How are you going to make 100 million?
Exactly.
How are you going to get to Saratoga?
And action, action, action.
Right.
You don't do anything without creating action, right?
Makes sense.
So the third piece is purpose. Now, this has become so much more prevalent because of the consumer. The consumer is demanding that you tell them why you're doing what you're doing, right? Because people want to be aligned with you and your business.
That's right.
Right? So if you got folks that are DEI and they're super excited about creating opportunities and working with people who don't look like them, different cultures, different everything, right? They might like you as a videographer.
Right.
Okay, look, I'm going to hire this guy because he sees it in a completely different way than I do. So that you bring a huge value.
That makes sense.
Right? There's some people who are like, I want to look this way, so I'm going to hire a certain specific type. That's where you get specialists, right? There's videographers out there that specialize in corporate America.
Right.
Most boring videos on the planet. There's no creativity there. But that doesn't mean they're bad videos. They're still high quality, but it's just like snooze fest.
That's right.
And that doesn't work for me and it doesn't work for you. But we don't have to be in those videos, do we?
That's right.
So that's the piece here. It's like, if you can found your business on these 5 principles, and then the last piece to all of this, Javoy, it has nothing to do with what you decide. It has nothing to do with who you are. It has everything to do with how you communicate. Communication is the key to all of it. And you alluded earlier saying, you know, I show up and they don't know what to do with me. I'm the laid back Jamaican guy. Well, that's on you, not them.
That is on me.
You got to say, hey guys, I see your vision, but I'm going to let you know how we're going to achieve it is these steps. And I'm a laid back guy, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to make this as easy as possible. And you set the expectation. It's all on you, the service or product provider, right? Wow. You don't think about that as far as like big products, right? Like what's a big purchase? Like a car, right? You don't walk in the dealership and go, I expect this process to be exactly how I want it. If you do, you're crazy, because no one walks into a dealership and thinks they're going to get their way every way.
That's right.
But if a dealership was smart, that's what they would sell. Come to us and we'll create an experience you want. Think about that, right? Now, the hard thing is it just takes too much time.
Right.
That's why there's a sales process. That's why people buy sales training.
Right.
Because they're looking for certain things that are consistent that they can make work.
Okay.
But you have to think of it from your service delivery. Every business needs to consider, what is my delivery of service?
Right.
Whether it's a product or an actual service.
What's
the delivery? What's the experience? And then you have to articulate that and how they're going to get it, right?
Right.
So if you go in and you don't tell anyone you're the laid back Jamaican guy, and I'm a high stress business owner who's so busy, and I carved out 3 hours, which I don't have, to shoot this video, which you promised me is going to be amazing.
Right.
And then you're like, no, man,
It's okay, brother.
we
chill
got
out.
this. No,
It would stress you out.
it would stress you out too.
And it would. That's right.
Because even though you're a laid back dude, like you get stressed out when the client's stressed out.
I'm only laid back because I just can't do stress. If I can avoid it, I will. So yeah.
I mean, but I
and
think
would
that's
be setting
everyone.
myself up for it.
I
if
th-
don't
yeah,
lay the
And
expectation.
I want you to understand that's everyone. Everyone doesn't want stress. There's no one out there's like, sign me up for all that extra stress.
Right.
No, it doesn't happen that way. But part of it's communication. And I talk about this all the time. I don't care what trade you're in. Like if you don't have a way to communicate to your clients, you need to create a way.
Mhm.
And if you don't have a way to understand how your clients receive communication, then you need to create a way. And we talk about this all the time. Like, you want to get a hold of me? Email me.
Mhm.
I'm crazy. That's how I do. I'm always on a computer. I'm always helping people. Email me.
Right.
Don't text me.
Right.
I turn my text notifications off. Right? How do I get a hold of Javoy? Call him.
Damn right.
Right?
Don't
How do I get a hold of my dad? Call him. How do I get a hold of my kids?
Hey.
Text them.
that
Text them.
makes sense.
Right? Everyone has a different communication style, so you have to meet people where they're at if you want to be successful.
That makes sense. So
That covered a lot.
that covered so much, and I'm imagining there is not much in terms of like a product for your business. How would you break into the product line? Because you offer more of a service.
Well, there's an easy way for me to do it.
Yeah.
And I think there's an easy way for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's a book,
A book. Okay.
right?
Okay.
Or a platform where you can generate passive income through your knowledge,
Makes sense.
like what you're doing for Lauren.
Right. Right. Building out a course.
Build a course.
Yeah.
Courses are a really great way to share your knowledge
Right.
without being there in person,
That makes sense.
right?
That makes sense.
And like you can talk on anything you have expertise in. And so like for me, I love business. I really do. I have a lot of business expertise. But when you get to a point, like I said, if you hit that $100 million mark,
Mm-hmm.
I could give you advice. But even I'm in uncharted territory there,
Right.
right? Now, if you stay less than 50, we're good.
Right.
So
Right.
we have some work to do to get you to
We do.
50.
We do. This
But
is
like
just the
50
beginning.
million's a nice goal.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can do a lot of charity with that.
That's the
That's what I
thing.
planned. So.
And it doesn't even have to be about money.
Right.
Because I'm not motivated by money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm motivated by service.
Right.
So for you, you find your motivation as a business owner. And every business owner has, some people it's money. And there's no judgment, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like at the end of the day, there has to be something more than just money.
What is the purpose of
Yeah.
money?
The purpose of getting the money is to care for my family.
That's right.
Okay, cool. Or to give more to charity, which I'm all about, right? I also know how valuable my time is.
Mm-hmm.
So my charity contributions are often not financial,
Right.
but they're of me
Yeah.
and my energy, right?
Okay.
It's like, how does that show up? What does getting Troy energy into your organization look like? Does it benefit?
Right.
And what skill set am I bringing? For Javoy, if you show up, it's not just the laid back Jamaican energy, but it's all of this. It's all this like, hey, I can make your organization look better. I can impact you through all of these channels.
That's right.
Create content, social media,
Right.
long format video,
You get to your vision.
create a course.
Right.
And so if you're a company that has a service, there's nothing wrong with that, right? The question becomes, how can you create passive streams of income
When you're not working.
for
on
every
the
service?
Right.
And so
Yeah.
I don't have that. I mean, I do. I have 2 books that I'm working on,
Oh.
but they're not out. And so right now they're just like, it's about time pulling those thoughts out of my head,
Mm-hmm.
working with my editor, doing that stuff,
Right. But it is
creating a course.
when it's another avenue, because I feel a lot of people might feel stuck, where they're like, I just mow lawns, and it's like, But if you've been doing it for 20 years, I'm sure you have more content in there, more to teach, more to share.
Well,
more to
okay,
give than
so
you
that's
think.
a great place to talk about, because think about this. Let's take the landscaper.
Yeah,
When people think about a landscaper, they think manual labor.
yeah.
And a buddy of mine's a landscape contractor, and he says, we don't just mow, blow, and go. I love that. But he's a wealth of information.
Right.
So could you create a how to edge, mow, and clean up video?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have a stupid amount of grass. I don't love all my grass,
Right.
but I have it. I live in Portland. Grass. I got water. It comes from the sky. So I have to think about, like, what does that look like? How do I, a busy human, keep this grass from looking like, the prairie in the middle of the country? And so I would love that video. Would I be willing to pay $10 to learn how? Yeah,
Yeah.
I would.
That's right.
I don't mind putting the work in, but getting some knowledge, just like any topic,
Right.
right? And so if you have a service, if you're a service-based and not a product-based company, how can you create a product based on your service? So think about this. There's so many products that came out in the medical field in the late 90s. You remember this? WebMD,
LabMD. That's right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because people are like,
Go to war.
yeah,
Oh, I don't
it was Ask Jeeves.
Ask Jeeves. That's
Jeeves,
right.
how do I cure my own cancer? No,
Right.
WebMD became this thing. And then it got spammy, and then we've course corrected, right? Wikipedia was
Mhm.
a similar thing. You have a dying industry of encyclopedias. I am still old enough to remember door-to-door encyclopedia salesman.
Mhm.
It's gone.
Mm.
No one orders encyclopedias because we literally have encyclopedia in our hands.
Right.
But someone's got to put it together.
That's right.
Where's the working knowledge?
That
Well,
makes sense.
Google handled it, right?
Oh.
And now look at it, right? Like, so Google is the literal evolution of the door-to-door encyclopedia salesman.
That's amazing.
How do you create a product from your service? It's anyone can do it.
That's right.
Also, maybe there's just a product that isn't your service, but it's complementary,
Oh,
right?
that's fair.
Well, think about this. You are a super Mr. Tech dude.
Yes.
What if you identified a missing link in all of this because of how much you use it and say, gosh, I could really use this? You create a product in alignment with what you're doing, right?
That's right.
A lot of advancements in technology happen because someone thinks about something that would take it to the
That's
next
amazing.
level. I mean, someone thought about these cool mics.
Right.
They're amazing. And I've seen you drop it like 10 times
Yeah.
and it still works,
And the portability and everything else. Wow.
right? So
Okay.
there are ways to create product-based and service-based business because videography is a service.
Right.
So the cool part is, you could create courses on how to be the best videographer. That's a thing.
I'm
You
all
could
about that.
create courses on how to select a business coach. You could create courses on anything that you've done
That's true.
in your process can become an actual aspect
Product.
of your business. Usually people think too small.
Agreed.
That's the big
I
piece
can agree.
for people without a business.
Mm.
You don't have a business, but you have an idea.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing is do not do anything until you get super clear on your values.
Yeah.
Don't do anything because you do not want to make decisions outside of your value scope because you will always have to course correct
Right.
because they'll never feel right. Okay? If you already own a business and you feel like unstable,
Mm-hmm.
the 5 pillars are going to be how you start to foundationalize,
Gotcha.
right? Start with your values and your culture, regardless of if you have employees or not. You need to be making decisions based on these things. And then get super clear. Where the heck am I going? Why is that important? Oh, because it allows you to take actionable steps toward it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then develop that mission. And start simply is, my vision is to be here. Get specific.
Mm-hmm.
And then my mission is to do A, B, C, D, and E to achieve my vision.
Perfect.
And then my purpose, this is why I do this in the first place. I want to make enough money so that I can give my kids the best education. I want to make enough money so that I can go on vacation. I haven't had one in 10 years. I want to make enough money to buy a new car, which is something I've never done. It doesn't matter, but it's going to help you articulate and really put a specific standardized effort toward it. And then I will always say this, and I don't care who you use, always consider mentors and coaches, always. Because those people know stuff you don't know.
That's right.
I have coaches and mentors, you have coaches and mentors, and we all need that knowledge base. And you go, I can't afford coaches or mentors. You don't necessarily have to.
Right.
I mean, I know a lot of coaches that will work as you build your business, or mentors just truly love mentoring.
That's right.
Find people that are in alignment with you, that believe in what you're trying to do, and will help you go to the next level. I say that and it sounds easy. It's not.
Right.
You're going to have to go through a lot of doors to find the right people.
But difficulty is never an excuse. So
Yeah.
these are the steps to get that, even as hard as it may be.
And they say friction promotes growth.
Oh, I love that. Iron sharpens iron.
There you go.
That's a wrap on today's conversation with Troy from Vanguard Collective. I told you, this guy brings the heat, and this is just the beginning. He's definitely coming back, so if today's insights got you thinking, you're gonna wanna stick around for future episodes. Now, I know we had a few tech hiccups, but hopefully that didn't stop you from catching the real value in this discussion. And if something Troy said hit home for you, let me know. Shoot me a message, drop a comment, or share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. And hey, if you're ready to stop sitting on the fence and start making real moves in your business, take that first step today, whatever that looks like for you. Thanks for tuning in to Mind Your Business. I'll catch you in the next one.